Six Adventurers, a fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm. There was once a man who was a master of many trades. He had served in the war and had been valiant and brave, but when the war ended, he was discharged with only 3 farthings as his parting gift. "I won't accept this," he declared. "Wait until I find the right companions, and the king will be forced to grant me all the treasures of his kingdom." Full of anger, he ventured into the forest and encountered a man who had uprooted 6 trees as easily as if they were stalks of wheat. He said to him, "Will you be my companion and join me?" "Certainly," he replied, "but first I must take this bundle of wood home to my parents." Taking one of the trees, he wrapped it around the other 5, hoisted the bundle onto his shoulder, and carried it away. Returning soon after, he joined his leader, who remarked, "The 2 of us together can take on the whole world." As they journeyed on, they came upon a hunter kneeling with his rifle aimed carefully. "Hunter," the leader asked, "what are you aiming at?" "2 miles from here," he replied, "there sits a fly on the branch of an oak tree. I intend to shoot its left eye." "Come with us," said the leader. "The 3 of us together can face any challenge." The hunter agreed, and they continued until they reached 7 windmills spinning rapidly despite the absence of wind, and not a leaf stirred. "I can't understand what drives these windmills without wind," said the leader. They proceeded another 2 miles and found a man sitting in a tree, holding one nostril closed and blowing out of the other. "What are you doing up there?" the leader inquired. "2 miles from here," he replied, "there are 7 windmills. I am blowing to make them turn." "Join us," exclaimed the leader. "With 4 of us together, we can face any challenge." Thus, the blower descended and joined their group. After a while, they encountered a man standing on one leg, the other leg removed and lying beside him. "You found a clever way to rest," the leader remarked to him. "I am a runner," he replied, "and to prevent myself from running too fast, I have removed one leg. With both legs, I run faster than a bird flies." "Join us," urged the leader. "With 5 of us together, we can surely face any challenge." So he joined them, and before long they encountered a man wearing a small hat tilted over one ear. "Manners, manners," scolded the leader. "Don't wear your hat like that. You look like a fool." "I dare not straighten it," the man replied. "If I do, a terrible frost will come, freezing the birds in the sky and causing them to fall dead to the ground." "Come with us," said the leader. "The 6 of us together can face any challenge." They continued until they reached a town where the king had announced that whoever could outrun his daughter in a race would win her hand in marriage, but the loser would lose his head. The leader stepped forward and declared one of his men would race on his behalf. "Then," said the king, "his life must also be wagered. If he fails, both his head and yours will be forfeit." After these terms were agreed upon, the leader prepared the runner, attaching his second leg. "Be ready," he instructed, "and ensure our victory." It was agreed that the winner would be the first to bring water from a distant brook. Both the king's daughter and the runner took pictures and set off simultaneously. But in an instant, while the king's daughter had only gone a short distance, the runner was already out of sight, running as swiftly as the wind. He quickly reached the brook, filled his pitcher, and turned back. However, halfway back, exhaustion overcame him, and he set down his pitcher and lay down to sleep. To ensure he did not sleep too comfortably and awaken promptly, he had taken a horse's skull lying nearby and placed it under his head as a pillow. Meanwhile, the king's daughter, a skilled runner indeed, had reached the brook, filled her pitcher, and was hurrying back when she saw the runner asleep. "Victory is mine," she exclaimed joyously, and emptied his pitcher before continuing on her way home. It seemed all was lost, but for the hunter standing on the castle wall with his keen eyes, who witnessed everything. "We cannot let the king's daughter surpass us," he said, taking aim with his rifle and shooting the horse's skull from under the runner's head without harming him. The runner woke up, jumped to his feet, saw his pitcher empty, and the king's daughter far ahead on her way home. But undaunted, he swiftly ran back to the brook, refilled his pitcher, and despite this, he arrived home 10 minutes before the king's daughter. "See," he said, "this is the first time I've truly stretched my legs. Before, it hardly deserved to be called running." The king was irritated, and his daughter even more so, to be outrun by a discharged common soldier. Together they plotted how they might rid themselves of him and his companions at once. "I have a plan," said the king confidently. "Rest assured we shall be rid of them forever." He then summoned the men, inviting them to feast and make merry, providing them entry to a room with an iron floor, iron doors, and windows with iron frames and bolts. Inside, a table was set with sumptuous food. "Now, go in and make yourselves comfortable," instructed the king. Once inside, he locked and bolted the door. He then instructed the cook to build a roaring fire beneath the room, heating the iron floor until it glowed red hot. The men began to feel the room growing increasingly warm, initially attributing it to the hearty meal. However, as the heat intensified and they realized the doors and windows were sealed shut, they suspected the king's malicious intent to suffocate them. "He won't succeed," declared the man with the small hat. "I will summon a frost that will shame the fire and drive it away." Straightening his hat, he caused a frost so severe that the heat dissipated entirely, freezing the food in the dishes. After an hour or two, with the king assuming they had perished in the heat, he ordered the door opened and inspected the room himself. To his surprise, all 6 men emerged unharmed, complaining of the chill and eager to warm themselves, as the room's extreme cold had frozen the food in the dishes. Enraged, the king reprimanded the cook, demanding why he had not followed his orders. "It's hot in there. See for yourself," retorted the cook. The king looked and saw a blazing fire beneath the iron room, realizing the 6 men could not be disposed of so easily. He devised a new scheme, summoning the leader and proposing, "If you renounce your claim to my daughter and accept gold instead, you may have as much as you desire." "Certainly, my lord king," replied the man. "Let me have as much gold as my servant can carry, and I relinquish all claim to your daughter." The king agreed, stipulating they return in a fortnight for the gold. The man then gathered all the tailors in the realm, tasking them to fashion a sack, a project that took 2 weeks to complete. Once finished, the strong man who had uprooted trees slung it over his shoulder and presented himself to the king. "Who is this giant carrying a bundle as large as a house?" exclaimed the king in alarm, envisioning the vast amount of gold he would carry away. Despite being loaded with a ton of gold by 16 strong men, the strong man effortlessly placed it all into the sack with one hand, remarking, "Is this all? It barely covers the bottom." The king then ordered his entire treasury brought in stages, yet the sack remained barely half full. "Bring more," demanded the man. "These meager scraps won't do at all." Ultimately, 7,000 wagons laden with gold from across the kingdom were driven up, and he tossed them all into his sack, including the oxen. "I won't quibble," he declared. "I'll take whatever fits until the sack is full." Even after filling it, there was still ample space. "I must bring this to an end," Yonki said. "If it's not full, it's easier to tie." He hoisted the sack onto his back and departed with his comrades. Witnessing his realm's entire wealth carried off by one man, the king seethed with anger, dispatching his cavalry to pursue the 6 men and recover the sack. 2 regiments quickly caught up with them, ordering them to surrender the sack or face death. "Surrender?" scoffed the man who could blow. "Perhaps you should dance a little first." Holding one nostril closed, he blew through the other, sending the regiments tumbling head over heels, over hills and far away. A brave sergeant with 9 wounds begged not to be shamed. The blower gently let him down, ensuring he came to no harm, and instructed him to convey to the king that any subsequent regiment sent would meet the same fate. Upon receiving this message, the king relented, saying, "Let them be. They have some justice on their side." And so the 6 comrades returned home with their treasure, divided it among themselves, and lived contentedly until the end of their days. The Wolf and the Man, a fairy tale by the brothers Grimm. Once upon a time, the fox spoke to the wolf about the strength of humans, how no animal could resist them, and how all must use cunning to protect themselves from humans. The wolf replied, "If only I could see a human once, I would attack him nonetheless." "I can help you with that," said the fox. "Come to me early tomorrow morning, and I will show you one." The wolf arrived early, and the fox led him to the path where hunters passed every day. First came an old retired soldier. "Is that a human?" asked the wolf. "No," replied the fox. "He was one." Next came a little boy on his way to school. Is that a human? No, he's going to become one. Finally, a hunter appeared with a double-barreled gun on his back and a sword at his side. The fox said to the wolf, "Look, there comes a human. You must attack him, but I will retreat to my den." The wolf then lunged at the hunter. When the hunter saw him, he said, "It's a shame I didn't load with a bullet," aimed, and fired his shot into the wolf's face. The wolf grimaced, but wasn't frightened and attacked again. The hunter then fired his second shot. The wolf endured the pain and continued to attack, but the hunter drew his gleaming sword and struck him several times, causing him to run back to the fox, bleeding and howling. "Well, brother wolf," said the fox, "how did it go with the human?" "Ah," replied the wolf, "I never imagined the strength of humans to be so great. First, he took a stick from his shoulder and blew into it, and something flew into my face that tickled terribly. Then he blew into the stick again, and it flew into my nose like lightning and hail. When I got close, he drew a white rib from his side and struck me so hard with it that I nearly lay dead." "See what a braggart you are," said the fox. "You throw your axe so far that you can't retrieve it." The Wolf and the Fox, a fairy tale by the brothers Grimm. The wolf had the fox with him, and whatever the wolf wished, the fox was compelled to do, for he was the weaker and would gladly have been rid of his master. Once as they were going through the forest, the wolf said, "Red Fox, fetch me something to eat, or I will eat you myself." The fox replied, "I know a farmyard where there are 2 young lambs. If you wish, we can fetch one of them." The wolf agreed, and they went there. The fox stole a little lamb, brought it to the wolf, and then departed. The wolf devoured it, but was not satisfied with just one. He wanted the other as well and tried to take it. In his clumsy attempt, the lamb's mother heard him and began to cry out loudly, summoning the farmers. They found the wolf and beat him severely, causing him to limp and howl his way back to the fox in the woods. "You've misled me terribly," he said. "I wanted to fetch the other lamb, but the country folks caught me and beat me thoroughly." The fox replied, "Why are you such a glutton?" The next day, they ventured out again, and the greedy wolf said once more, "Red Fox, fetch me something to eat, or I will eat you myself." The fox answered, "I know a farmhouse where the wife is baking pancakes tonight. We can take some for ourselves." They went there, and the fox sneaked around the house, sniffing until he found the dish. He took 6 pancakes and brought them to the wolf. "Here's something for you to eat," he said, and then went on his way. The wolf gulped down the pancakes quickly and said, "They make one want more," and proceeded to tear down the entire dish, causing a commotion. The woman came out, saw the wolf, and called for help. The people arrived and beat him severely, leaving him with 2 lame legs, howling as he returned to the fox in the forest. "You've misled me abominably," he cried. "The peasants caught me and tanned my hide." But the fox replied, "Why are you such a glutton?" On the 3rd day, as they walked together and the wolf could only limp painfully, he again demanded, "Red Fox, fetch me something to eat, or I will eat you myself." The fox replied, "I know a man who has slaughtered, and the salted meat is in a barrel in the cellar. We can take that." The wolf said, "I will go with you so that you can help me if I can't get away." "I agree," said the fox, showing him the paths until they reached the cellar. There was plenty of meat, and the wolf began eating, thinking, "There's plenty of time before I need to stop." The fox enjoyed it too, but kept looking around and checking the hole they came through. The wolf asked, "Dear fox, why are you running around so much and jumping in and out?" "I must make sure no one is coming," replied the crafty fox. "Don't eat too much," the wolf said. "I won't leave until the barrel is empty." Meanwhile, the farmer, who heard the fox's jumping, entered the cellar. When the fox saw him, he leaped out of the hole in one bound. The wolf tried to follow, but had eaten so much that he couldn't get through and got stuck. The farmer came with a cudgel and struck him dead, while the fox bounded into the forest, glad to be rid of the old glutton. The Gossip Wolf and the Fox and his cousin, a fairy tale by the brothers Grimm. The she-wolf gave birth to a cub and invited the fox to be its godfather. "After all, he is closely related to us," she said. "He is intelligent and talented. He can educate my little son and help him progress in the world." The fox also seemed very sincere and said, "Dear Mrs. Gossip, I thank you for the honor you have bestowed upon me. However, I will behave in such a manner that you shall find joy in it." He enjoyed himself at the feast and was cheerful. Later, he said, "Dear Mrs. Gossip, it is our duty to care for the child. It should have good food to grow strong. I know a sheep pen from which we could easily obtain a good piece." The she-wolf liked the idea and went with the fox to the farmyard. He pointed out the pen from a distance and said, "You can crawl in there without being seen, while I look around the other side to see if I can catch a chicken." He did not, however, go there, but sat down at the edge of the forest, stretched his legs, and rested. The she-wolf crawled into the pen. There was a dog lying there, and it made such a noise that the farmers came running, caught Gossip Wolf, and poured a strong burning mixture, which had been prepared for washing, over her fur. Finally, she managed to escape and dragged herself outside. There lay the fox, who pretended to be full of complaints, and said, "Oh, dear Mistress Gossip, how badly I have fared. The farmers have attacked me and shattered all my limbs. If you do not want me to lie here and perish, you must carry me away." The she-wolf herself could only move slowly, but she was so worried about the fox that she took him on her back and slowly carried her completely safe and sound to her house. Then the fox called to her, "Farewell, dear Mistress Gossip. May the roasting you have had do you good," laughed heartily at her, and bounded away. The Fox and the Cat. A fairy tale by the brothers Grimm. It came to pass that the cat encountered the fox in a forest, and thinking to herself, "He is wise and experienced and highly regarded in the world," she addressed him in a friendly manner. "Good day, dear Mr. Fox, how are you? How are things with you? How are you managing in these challenging times?" The fox, brimming with arrogance, scrutinized the cat from head to toe, hesitating for a long time before deciding whether to respond. Finally, he said, "Oh, you poor beard cleaner, you motley fool, you hunter of mice and beggar for food, what are you thinking? Do you dare to inquire about my well-being? What have you learned? How many arts do you understand?" "I understand only one," replied the cat modestly. "And what art is that?" asked the fox. "When the dogs are chasing me, I can leap into a tree and save myself." "Is that all?" said the fox. "I am a master of 100 arts, and I possess a sackful of tricks besides. You evoke pity in me. Come with me, and I will teach you how to evade the hounds." Just then, a hunter with 4 dogs approached. The cat agilely jumped onto a tree and perched atop it, where the branches and leaves completely concealed her. "Open your sack, Mr. Fox. Open your sack," cried the cat to him, but the dogs had already seized him and held him firmly. "Ah, Mr. Fox," cried the cat, "your 100 arts have left you in the lurch. If you could have climbed like me, your life would not have been in danger."